Sam dear, aren't you going to try the cake your wife made especially to celebrate? My father asked, pushing the plate toward me with a smile that didn't match the sweat on his forehead. It was the eve of our wedding, and we were at my parents' house for the traditional family dinner. The table was set with my mother's special china, candles were lit, everything was perfect for what would be our last meal as a couple. But something about the way my father looked at my fiancée, Amanda, made my stomach churn. My name is Sam Mitchell, I'm 28 years old, and until that moment I believed I had the most perfect life a man could wish for. Amanda was beautiful, intelligent, worked as a nurse, and had won over my parents from the first day she met them. Our 3-year relationship seemed like a fairy tale, and our ceremony the next day would be in the church where my parents were married 30 years ago. But as I watched Amanda serve another slice of cake to my father, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. She knew exactly how he liked it. 2 spoonfuls of sugar, no milk, stirred clockwise. Intimate details that only someone very close would know. Amanda made this cake with your taste in mind, Robert, she said, using my father's first name in a way that sounded too familiar. My mother, Helen, was in the kitchen making coffee, oblivious to the tension building in the dining room. I grew up in that house, knew every corner, every sound. And there was something different in the air that night. A perfume that wasn't my mother's. A sweet floral scent that I recognized perfectly. It was Amanda's perfume. You've been working so hard lately, Robert, Amanda continued, her hand resting briefly on my father's arm. You must be exhausted with all the preparations. The casual intimacy of the gesture made me choke on my wine. When had my fiancée started caring so much about my father's well-being? When had she started calling him by his first name instead of Mr. Mitchell? My father looked away when our eyes met. For the first time in my life, I saw my childhood hero look guilty. Actually, I said, placing my fork slowly on my plate, I have a question for both of you. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda stopped chewing. My father froze with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Why was Amanda's car in our driveway yesterday afternoon when Mom was at work and I was supposed to be at the business meeting that was cancelled? The color drained from Amanda's face. My father started to stammer something about Amanda coming over to borrow something, but I wasn't listening anymore. Because while they were trying to come up with an excuse, I realized something I should have noticed months ago. The chemistry between them. The way they moved in perfect sync in the kitchen during family dinners. How my father always found excuses to be alone with Amanda when I left for work. How she knew my mother's schedule better than I did. You know what's interesting? I continued, my voice still calm despite the storm brewing in my chest. Yesterday, when I got home early, I found 2 wine glasses in the sink. Mom doesn't drink wine in the afternoon. At that moment, my mother returned from the kitchen with the coffee tray, completely oblivious to the fact that her family was imploding right in front of her. Amanda finally spoke, her voice a whisper, Sam, I can explain. I'm sure you can, I replied, getting up from the table. But not today. Tomorrow in church, in front of 300 people, you'll have a lot of explaining to do. What they didn't know was that I had already found out everything. And what I planned to do the next day would leave that church in total silence. If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and discovering how far a man can go when he's betrayed by the people he loves most, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. While Amanda and my father stared at each other in panic, I already knew exactly how our wedding ceremony would become unforgettable. For them, it would be public humiliation. For me, it would be the first day of my new life. I left my parents arguing quietly in the dining room and went up to my old room, where I always stayed when I visited my family's house. But this time, it wasn't nostalgia that moved me up the stairs I had climbed thousands of times as a child. It was the need to process the deepest betrayal a man could face. I sat on the bed where I used to dream about my future, and now I had to face the reality that the 2 people I loved most in the world had conspired to turn me into a fool. My father, Robert Mitchell, had always been my hero. A respected civil engineer, he had built half the commercial buildings in our town. A 52-year-old man who preached integrity and family values. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who took me fishing every Sunday, who cried on my graduation day. Amanda was everything I thought I wanted in a wife. At 26, she had that natural beauty that didn't need makeup to impress. Blonde hair that smelled like vanilla, green eyes that sparkled when she laughed at my bad jokes. She worked the night shift at the hospital, caring for people when they needed it most. I saw her as an angel. What a fool I was. I grabbed my laptop and started connecting the dots my mind had refused to see. The messages Amanda received during our dinners that she always said were from the hospital. The way my father started exercising religiously after he met Amanda, losing almost 15 pounds and buying younger clothes. How he always found excuses to show up at my apartment when Amanda was there and I needed to work late. What a son of a bitch, I muttered, opening our shared bank statements. And there it was. Transaction after transaction that now made perfect sense. Expensive flowers bought on days that weren't special to us. Dinners at fancy restaurants at times when I was working. A reservation at a boutique hotel last week, the same day Amanda said she went to visit her sister out of state. But what broke me completely was finding the conversation on her phone. Amanda had left her phone in my car the week before, and when a notification popped up on the screen, I saw a preview of a message that made my blood run cold. "Can't wait to be in your arms again, my love." At the time, I confronted Amanda about it. She laughed, said it was a friend talking about her boyfriend. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative was unthinkable. Now, with her phone in my hands, she had left it charging in my bedroom, I finally read the entire conversation. "Robert, I can't pretend anymore that you're just my son's girlfriend." "Amanda, I know, love. Neither can I. Sometimes when we're all having dinner together, all I want to do is kiss you in front of everyone." "Robert, does Helen suspect anything?" "Amanda, of course not. She's too busy with work to notice anything. And Sam? Well, Sam only sees what he wants to see." "Robert, after the wedding, we need to be more careful. But I won't stop loving you." "Amanda, marriage is just a piece of paper, Robert. My heart has always belonged to you." My hands were shaking as I continued reading months of messages. Detailed plans for secret meetings. Conversations about how to keep up appearances after Amanda and I were officially married. Discussions about how my mother would never find out because she was too naive. The message that destroyed me the most was from 3 days ago. "Amanda, sometimes I feel bad for Sam. He's so excited about the wedding." "Robert, don't feel bad. He'll have a good life. A beautiful wife, even if she loves another man. Lots of men live like that and never even know it." "Amanda, you're right. And who knows? Maybe in time he'll find someone more suitable for him. Someone his own age. Robert, or maybe he'll just accept the situation. Some men prefer a comfortable lie to the painful truth." They were laughing at me, planning my humiliation as if it were entertainment for them. If you're following this story and are outraged by the level of betrayal a man can face from those closest to him, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because what happens next will leave you speechless. I hung up the phone and lay down on my bed, staring at the ceiling of the room where I grew up. The same glow-in-the-dark stars my father had stuck there when I was 8 were still stuck to the plaster. He had been so loving back then, so present, so honest. When did he become this man capable of betraying not only his wife, but his own son? I remembered the conversation we had when I asked Amanda to marry me. He had held my shoulders, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Son, when you truly love a woman, you do anything to protect her. Anything." Now I understood what he meant. Except the woman he was protecting wasn't my mother. The sound of laughter from downstairs brought me back downstairs. Amanda and my father were in the kitchen washing dishes together, while my mother watched television in the living room. The intimacy between them was glaring now that I knew what to look for. The way he dried a plate and handed it to her, their hands touching for a second longer than necessary. How she laughed at jokes that weren't even funny. How they moved around each other in the kitchen as if it were a choreographed dance. "Sam." Amanda smiled when she saw me standing in the kitchen doorway. "We were talking about the honeymoon. Your father was giving me tips on the best restaurants in Paris." Of course he was. Probably the same restaurants he planned to take her to on some future business trip. "Really?" I managed to say, my voice surprisingly controlled. How nice of him to be so concerned about our honeymoon. My father avoided my gaze, focusing intently on the plate he was drying for the 3rd time. "Well," he cleared his throat. "Amanda deserves the best. She'll be part of the family tomorrow." The irony of his words hit me like a punch in the stomach. She was already part of the family, in a way I never imagined. "Actually," I continued, feeling a strange calm wash over me, "I can't wait for everyone at church to see how well you two know each other. Amanda froze with the dish towel in her hand. My father finally looked at me, and for a second, I saw fear in his eyes. What do you mean by that? Amanda asked, her voice a little higher than normal. I smiled. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. Just that you two seem to have developed a special connection. It's beautiful to see. The silence that followed was broken by my mother entering the kitchen. What are you guys talking about? It sounds serious. Just talking about tomorrow's wedding, honey, my father replied quickly. How everything is going to be perfect. My mother smiled, kissing her husband on the cheek. 30 years of marriage and you still get emotional about these things. If only she knew. I watched Amanda and my father exchange a quick glance, laden with guilt and fear. They knew I was suspicious, but they weren't sure how much I knew. Good. Keeping them in suspense was part of the plan. Well, I announced, stretching my arms as if I were tired, I think I'm going to head home. Big day tomorrow. Amanda leaned in to kiss me, and I had to use all my willpower not to pull away. Good luck trying to sleep tonight, she whispered in my ear. I bet you'll be up thinking about me. If only she knew how right she was. Just for all the wrong reasons. On the way home, I called my best friend Jake. Sam. How's the future husband? Nervous. Jake, I need you to do something for me tomorrow. And I need you to not ask any questions. Her voice immediately turned serious. What happened? Just, can you bring your good camera to the wedding tomorrow? The professional one. Sure, but why? You already hired a photographer. Let's just say there might be a few moments I want to make sure are well documented. Jake knew my voice well enough to know when I was serious. I'll be there, brother. With the best resolution possible. When I got home, I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and started planning exactly how my wedding ceremony would become unforgettable. For them, it would be the end of everything. For me, it would be the beginning of a life where I finally knew the value of the people around me. I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the kitchen until 4 a.m, rereading every message between Amanda and my father, every receipt, every carefully constructed lie. The worst discovery came when I found the old emails on the shared laptop. Conversations dating back 6 months, much longer than I had imagined. Robert, you are the most beautiful woman I have ever met. Sam is so lucky. Amanda, sometimes I think he doesn't value me the way you do. Robert, if you were mine, I would treat you like the queen you are. 6 months. They had been planning this for 6 months. I remembered all the times Amanda complained that I worked too much, that I didn't pay enough attention to her. How she always found fault with me after visiting my parents. Now it made sense. She was comparing me to him. The phone rang at 6 a.m. Amanda. Hi, honey. I couldn't sleep thinking about you. Her sweet voice made me feel nauseous. I was awake too, I replied, which was technically true. Are you nervous about the wedding? Actually, I'm excited. I can't wait to see everyone's faces when they find out the truth. There was a pause. What truth? About how much we love each other, of course. Another silence. Oh yes. Of course. After I hung up, I called my cousin Rachel, who worked as an investigative journalist in Atlanta. Sam? It's 6 a.m. Are you okay? Rachel, I need a favor. And I need it to be discreet. What happened? Do you still have contacts in the local press? People who might be interested in an interesting story. What kind of story? The kind that involves the son of a respected engineer discovering that his fiancée is having an affair with his own father. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Sam, tell me you're not serious. I have proof. Messages, photos, bank statements, everything. Are you sure you want to make this public? Once it's out, there's no taking it back. I looked out the kitchen window, watching the sun rise over the town where I grew up, where everyone knew me as the good boy who always did the right thing. Rachel, they made a fool of me for 6 months. They planned to keep deceiving me after the wedding. They think I'm too pathetic to find out. And what do you want me to do? I want someone from the press to be at the church today. With cameras. Because what's going to happen during the ceremony is going to be the story of the year. At 8 in the morning, I showered and dressed with the same care I would for any wedding. Impeccable black suit, tie Amanda had picked out, shoes my father gave me for graduation. The irony was not lost on me. My cell phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Son, I'm so proud of you today. I know Dad is too. You two have found a wonderful woman." If only she knew how right she was about that. I arrived at the church at 10, 2 hours before the ceremony. The place was already being decorated. White flowers, gold ribbons, exactly as Amanda had planned for the most important day of her life. Jake found me in the parking lot. "Man, you look terrible. Didn't you sleep?" "I spent the night preparing for the most important day of my life." He frowned. "Sam, what's going on? You're scaring me." "Jake, in 2 hours, 300 people are going to witness something no one will ever forget. And I need you to document every second. Are you going to tell me what's going on, or am I going to have to guess?" I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the messages between Amanda and my father. Jake read it silently, his expression changing from confusion to shock and then to pure anger. "That bitch. And her father. Sam, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. Feel sorry for them both when they find out that I've known everything for 12 hours and decided not to call off the wedding." "What are you going to do?" I smiled. The first genuine smile in 24 hours. "I'm going to get married, Jake. I'm going to walk up to that altar, in front of 300 people, including her entire family, all my coworkers, all my mother's friends, and I'm going to tell them exactly what kind of woman I'm about to marry." "Sam." "And then I'm going to tell them what kind of father I have." Jake shook his head slowly. "Man, that's going to destroy her family." "My family is already destroyed, Jake. By them. I'm just going to show everyone the wreckage." As we walked toward the church, my phone rang. My father. "Son, I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you today." "Thanks, Dad. I'm proud too. Proud of the man I've decided to become." "See you at the altar." "Sure. And Dad? Get ready for the speech of your life." An hour before the ceremony, I got the confirmation I had been waiting for. "Sam, it's Rachel. I have a reporter from Woosan 9 on his way to the church. He'll be undercover as a guest, but with a full camera crew. And I got a local gossip blogger to show up as well." "Perfect. Are you absolutely sure about this? Once this bomb goes off, there's no turning back." I looked at myself in the church bathroom mirror, adjusting my tie for the 10th time. The man staring back at me was no longer the naive Sam from yesterday. He was someone who had learned the hard way that boundless kindness is seen as weakness. "Rachel, they spent 6 months laughing at me. They plan to continue cheating on me after the wedding. They think I'm too pathetic to find out or confront them. And now they're going to learn otherwise." 30 minutes later, the guests began to arrive. Through the window of my dressing room, I could see my mother greeting people at the church entrance, radiant in her navy blue dress. She had no idea that in less than an hour she would discover that her husband of 30 years had been cheating on her with her daughter-in-law. Amanda arrived in a white limousine, like a princess stepping out of a fairy tale. The dress was exactly as she had dreamed: French lace, a 3-meter train, her great-grandmother's veil. She had spent 8 months planning every detail of this day. How ironic to discover that for the last 6 months she had been planning to marry me while sleeping with my father. Jake appeared at the door, already positioned with his professional camera. The 2 extra cameras are set up. One focused on the altar, the other on the front row where your parents will be sitting. The reporter is in the 5th row, on the right side. The blogger is in the back, broadcasting live to 50,000 followers. My phone rang. "Amanda. Hi, my love. Are you nervous?" Her voice was slightly shaky, probably feeling guilty about the last 6 months of betrayal. "Actually, I'm calmer than ever. It's funny how clarity can be liberating." "Clarity about what?" "About who the people are who really love me." Silence on the other end of the line. "Sam, you sound strange. Is everything okay?" "Everything is perfect, Amanda. I'll see you at the altar." 15 minutes before the ceremony, my father knocked on the door. "Can I come in, son?" Robert Mitchell walked in wearing his rented tuxedo, his hair perfectly combed, looking proud and emotional as any father should be at his son's wedding. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have thought he was genuinely happy for me. "I wanted to have a moment with you before I give my girl away to another man," he said, trying to make a joke that came out forced. "Your girl?" "Amanda, of course. She's going to be, well, you know." Yes, I knew. She had been his for 6 months. "Dad, can I ask you a question?" "Sure, son." "What would you do if you found out someone you loved was cheating on you?" He looked uncomfortable, fiddling with his cufflink. "Well, that's... Why are you asking me that?" "Curiosity. You've always taught me about honor and integrity. I just want to know how to apply those values in real life." "Sam, honesty is fundamental in any relationship. If someone betrays you, you confront them with dignity and resolve it in the best way possible." "With dignity." "Exactly." I smiled. "Thanks for the advice, Dad. I'll follow that exactly." He looked relieved, as if he had passed some test. If only he knew that he had just given me moral approval for what I was about to do. 10 minutes before the ceremony, I received one last text message from an unknown number. "Sam, this is Marcus from the Washington Post. Your cousin gave me the details. I'm here with a discreet team. I have sources confirming the story. Are you sure you want to do this?" I replied, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." If you've been following this journey of discovery and wondering how far a man can go when betrayed by those closest to him, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what's about to happen will completely redefine the meaning of justice. The music began to play. It was time. I walked down the aisle to where Pastor Williams was waiting for me. The church was packed, 300 people dressed elegantly, discreet cameras positioned, journalists disguised as guests, all waiting to witness what they thought was a traditional wedding ceremony. In the front row, my mother held a handkerchief, overcome with emotion. Next to her, my father waved at me proudly, his expression filled with paternal love. What a talented actor. The church doors opened. The wedding march echoed off the stone walls as Amanda appeared, stunning in her dream dress, walking slowly toward the altar. Toward me. Toward the moment that would define the rest of our lives. As she approached, smiling radiantly, I mentally finished my preparation. I had the messages saved on 3 different devices. I had copies of the bank statements. I had Jake's video statement confirming that he saw my father leaving my apartment one afternoon when Amanda was visiting her sister. I had everything. And in less than 10 minutes, 300 people, including journalists, bloggers, and a live broadcast, would find out exactly what kind of woman was walking down that aisle and what kind of father was sitting in the front row pretending to be proud. Amanda walked down the aisle and took my hand, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "You look beautiful," she whispered. "And you're exactly where you need to be," I replied. Pastor Williams opened his Bible and looked out at the congregation. "Dear brothers and sisters, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Samuel Mitchell and Amanda Richardson in holy matrimony." The last part of my plan was about to begin. If anyone knows of any reason why these two should not be married, speak now or forever hold your peace. Pastor Williams asked the traditional question, his voice echoing off the stone walls of the church. Normally, this moment passed in respectful silence, an empty ritual that no one expected to be interrupted. Today would be different. "Actually, Pastor Williams," I said, my voice clear and calm, "I have something very important to share." A murmur rippled through the congregation. Amanda squeezed my hand tightly, her eyes wide with panic. In the front row, I saw my father straighten in his chair, his face draining of color. "Sam," Amanda whispered urgently, "what are you doing?" "I'm being honest," I replied, turning to face the 300 people who had come to celebrate our love. "Something you two should have tried." Pastor Williams looked confused. "My son, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "No, Pastor. These people deserve to know the truth before they witness sacred vows." I let go of Amanda's hand and walked a few steps toward the microphone. Especially considering that I found out yesterday that my fiancée has been having an affair with my father for 6 months. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. Then came the explosion. Shock gasps echoed throughout the church. Someone screamed, "Oh my God," from the 5th row. I heard my mother make a sound I had never heard before, something between a moan and a muffled scream. "Sam, stop this." Amanda tried to grab me, but I pulled away. "Why should I stop, Amanda? You didn't stop when you decided to sleep with my father. He didn't stop when he decided to cheat on my mother of 30 years. I pulled my phone out of my vest pocket. "Actually, let me read some of the messages I found last night." "Robert," I began, my voice amplified by the church sound system, "I can't wait to be in your arms again." My mother stood up abruptly from the front row, staring at my father with an expression of pure horror. "Helen, I can explain," my father began, but she cut him off with a slap that echoed throughout the church. "Amanda," I continued reading, "marriage is just a piece of paper. My heart has always belonged to you, Robert." Amanda's mother, sitting on the right side of the church, began to cry hysterically. Her father stood up, looking ready to attack someone. I wasn't sure if it would be me, Amanda, or my father. "And here's my favorite," I said, scrolling through my phone. Robert to Amanda, "Sam will never find out. He only sees what he wants to see. Some men prefer a comfortable lie to the painful truth." The silence now was different. It was no longer shock, it was collective fury directed at the two people who had betrayed me. Amanda was crying, her hands covering her face. "Sam, please, can we talk about this in private?" "In private?" I laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Like you did for 6 months? Like when you said you were visiting your sister, but you were actually at the Marriott with my father." I showed them the receipts I had printed out. "Room 215, March 7th. Same date you said you were too sick to come to our anniversary dinner." Judge Harrison Reed, my best friend's father from college, rose from the 10th row. "Mr. Mitchell," his authoritative voice cut through the chaos, "is this true?" My father was slumped in his chair, unable to look at anyone. "Answer him, Robert," my mother screamed. "Look at your son and tell him it's not true." My father's silence was answer enough. "Actually," I continued, feeling a strange calm wash over me, "there's more. Amanda, do you want to tell everyone about the expensive gifts you've been receiving? That pearl necklace you said you bought with your nurse's salary." I pointed to the necklace around her neck. It cost $3,200. Purchased by Robert Mitchell the day after you two spent time together while my mother was caring for her sick grandmother. The congregation was in an uproar now. People were standing up, pointing, whispering furiously. Some family members began moving toward the altar. That's when I saw Jake in the back of the church, his camera capturing every second. The Washington Post reporter in the 5th row, discreetly recording everything. The blogger broadcasting live to thousands of people online. "Sam," Pastor Williams tried once more, "maybe it's better." "Pastor, you've always preached about the importance of truth, haven't you?" I interrupted. "About how lies erode the fabric of the community." He nodded slowly. "Well, here's the whole truth." I walked back to Amanda, who was trembling at the altar. "Did you really think you could marry me this morning and be in bed with my father tonight?" "It wasn't like that," she began, but her voice broke. "It wasn't like what? You had plans." I read the messages. "After the wedding we need to be more careful, but I'll never stop loving you." Those were your exact words, Dad. I turned to face Robert Mitchell, the man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had taken me fishing, who had been my hero for 28 years. "You thought I was too pathetic to find out. You thought you could keep cheating on me indefinitely." "Son, please." "Don't call me son." My voice echoed throughout the church. A father doesn't do that to his son. A father doesn't steal his son's fiancée and laugh in his face. The crowd was completely on my side now. I heard someone shout, "Disgusting." And another, "How could you do this?" My mother approached the altar, tears streaming down her face. "Helen," I tried to comfort her, but she shook her head. "No, Sam. You did the right thing. I needed to know." She turned to my father and Amanda. 30 years, she said, her voice breaking. 30 years of marriage thrown away for a cheap fling. "It's not cheap, Helen," my father finally said, standing up. "I love Amanda." The silence that followed was deadly. "You love Amanda," I repeated slowly. "And what am I? What is your wife of 30 years? What is your own son?" Your family, he said, as if that explained everything. And her? What is she? He looked at Amanda, who was sobbing uncontrollably. She's the woman I choose. It was at that moment that I understood completely. It wasn't just about sex or attraction. He had chosen her over us. Over me, over my mother, over our entire family. Then you two deserve each other, I said finally. I turned to the congregation one last time. Thank you for coming to what should have been my wedding. Instead, you witnessed something much more valuable, the truth. I began to walk toward the church exit, pausing only to kiss my mother on the forehead. Are you going to be okay? I asked softly. I will now, she replied. Thank you for freeing me from a lie. As I walked down the center aisle, I heard chaos erupt behind me. Screams, accusations, the sound of people getting up and leaving. At the church door, Jake caught up with me. Man, that was intense. It had to be done. What happens now? I looked back one last time, seeing Amanda and my father at the altar, alone and exposed, while 300 people judged them. Now they live with the consequences of their own choices. 6 months later, I got a phone call that made me smile for the first time in a long time. Sam, it's Rachel. You need to watch the local news tonight. I turned on the television and watched a report about the tax investigation that had been opened against my father. Apparently, the expensive gifts for Amanda and the secret trips had been paid for with money embezzled from his company's construction projects. The irony was perfect. He had destroyed our family for a woman who was now bankrupting him. Amanda appeared briefly in the report, rushing out of a courthouse with a lawyer. She looked 10 years older, her hair dull, her eyes lacking the sparkle that had once enchanted me. I found out through mutual acquaintances that she had lost her job at the hospital after the story broke. No one wanted to hire the nurse who had cheated on her fiancé with her father-in-law on their wedding day. My father had to sell the company, the house, even the classic car he had restored over many years. Helen, my mother, had received half of everything in the divorce, but she decided to move to Oregon, where my aunt lived. I need a fresh start away from all this shame, she told me in our last conversation before she moved. But Sam, I'm proud of you. You had the courage to do what I never could. The most surprising transformation happened to me. In the first few months after the wedding that never was, I sank into a deep depression. Losing Amanda hurt, but losing my father, my childhood hero, was a pain I didn't know how to process. It was Jake who convinced me to seek therapy. Man, you exposed 2 people who betrayed you in the worst possible way. But now you need to process that and move on. Therapy taught me something fundamental. I hadn't lost a father and a fiancé. I had gotten rid of people who never truly loved me. A person who loves you doesn't conspire behind your back. They don't laugh at your naivety. They don't plan to continue cheating on you after swearing eternal fidelity. 9 months after the non-ceremony, I started my own project management consulting company. The skills I learned working with my father, ironically, became the foundation of my own success. My first client was Jennifer Walsh, an architect who had seen my story on social media. Any man with the courage to stand up in front of 300 people and expose the truth, she said during our first meeting, is someone I can trust to manage my projects with complete honesty. Within 2 years, my company had grown to 15 employees. I discovered that there was a huge demand for professionals who prioritized transparency over corporate politics. But the real healing came when I met Sarah. She was a veterinarian, 32 years old, and at the cafe where I worked when her phone rang. I only heard one side of the conversation, but it was enough to understand that someone was trying to manipulate her. I'm sorry, I said when she hung up, clearly upset. I couldn't help but overhear. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands people who try to make you look like an idiot, I can offer a unique perspective. We laughed together as I told her my story. It wasn't the bitter laughter of revenge, but the light laughter of someone who had overcome something terrible and found strength on the other side. Sarah had been through something similar, an ex-fiancé who tried to steal her veterinary practice through legal manipulation. She had fought in court and won, but the process had left her wary of relationships. The difference, she said during our 3rd date, is that you had the courage to expose yourself publicly to defend your dignity. I fought in the courts, away from the public eye. I still don't know which approach was braver. 2 years later, Sarah and I were married in a small, intimate ceremony in her backyard. Only 20 people attended, including my mother, who flew in from Oregon especially for the occasion. There was no drama, no betrayals, no unpleasant surprises. Just two people who had learned, in the hardest way possible, the value of absolute honesty in a relationship. During our honeymoon in Canada, Sarah asked me a question that changed my perspective on everything. Do you regret exposing them publicly? The way you did. I thought about it for a long time before answering. I don't regret telling the truth, I finally said. But I learned that the real victory wasn't humiliating them publicly. It was rebuilding my life based on values they never had. Today, 5 years after that day in church, I run a thriving business, have a solid marriage based on real trust, and maintain relationships with people who genuinely value me. Amanda? I hear she moved to another state, works at a small clinic, and avoids social media completely. The last photo I saw of her online was from 3 years ago. She looked younger before she met my dad. Robert never tried to contact me. I found out through mutual acquaintances that he works as a construction foreman for a small company, makes a tenth of what he used to, and lives alone in a one-bedroom apartment. The poetic justice is that they got to be together. After losing everything, family, money, reputation, they only had each other left. The great love that justified destroying two families was now being tested by financial pressure and social isolation. As far as I know, they broke up after 8 months. When you build a relationship based on lies and betrayal, it's hard to trust each other when the going gets tough. The most important lesson I learned was about the value of authenticity. For 3 years, I lived in a relationship based on a lie. Amanda never loved me. She loved the idea of having a stable husband while seeking excitement elsewhere. My father never respected me. He saw me as an obstacle to his selfish happiness. When I chose to expose the truth publicly, it wasn't just about humiliating them. It was about refusing to accept a life built on deception. Today, when young people come to me for advice about relationships or business, I always say the same thing: choose a painful truth over a comfortable lie. The truth may hurt you today, but the lie will destroy you tomorrow. If this story of transformation and overcoming adversity has touched you, if you believe that everyone deserves relationships based on real honesty, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have dozens of stories about people who chose dignity over silence, and you won't want to miss any of them. The last time I passed by the church where I was supposed to marry Amanda, I stopped for a few minutes in the parking lot. I remembered that terrible life-changing day when 300 people witnessed my refusal to accept a life of lies. Then I thought about my life now, the company I built based on integrity, my marriage to Sarah based on total transparency, the peace I feel when I go to sleep every night knowing that no one is deceiving me. I smiled and drove home, where Sarah was cooking dinner and planning our next trip. Amanda and my father tried to turn me into a fool. Instead, they turned me into the strongest man I ever imagined I could be. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all.